welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 106. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this fine audio program aimed at specific people out there, normal people, but normal people that do computer-y things. And who am I talking about when I say that? I say the VARs, the integrators, the MSPs, the system builders. Basically, if you're working with computers and selling them, integrating them, doing something, supporting them in other businesses, you are in the right place. Joining me this week and every week is our big honcho guy who makes the magazine and all the trains run on time here, Mr. Rich Freeman.
What am I doing on a program for normal people?
That's a good point, and we're going to have to address that. So I'll start looking for a new host to do this with me. Although, believe me, I am far from normal, as most people who've listened to this and watched this over the years have come to know. But Rich, we are not alone. We managed to pull in a sucker with us this week. Ed, I don't have your exact title, so our guest host is Ed Correia, and I'm sure he would like to tell you a little bit about him. Welcome, Ed.
Hi there. Well, I'm president of Sagacent Technologies. Sagacent's been around for 19 years as an MSP, and I've been in IT. This is my 41st year, and in all that time, I don't think I've met many normal people in IT. We're special.
It does take a unique breed to do this for a living.
Yes.
I will point out Ed is a longtime friend of ChannelPro, FOCP. He has spoken at a bunch of our events. He's been a great source for a lot of articles that we've done. Have we ever had you on the cover, Ed? If not, we should rectify this.
I think so. I've been on the cover of a few magazines. I think some were just warrants, but you know.
So, Ed, tell us a little bit about how you got started and what Sagacent does.
In all embarrassment here, when I was a young boy and I discovered things that could do math for me, since I was never great at math, and then I started typing on these things that would correct spelling, which was incredible. I thought I need to know everything I can about these items. And that hobby or interest became a profession. It wasn't intentional. But everywhere I went for jobs, they said, well, gee, you understand this stuff that we don't, so you take care of that. And finally I said, well, I should get paid for that.
Now, when specifically did you kind of make the move into managed services? I mean, you were relatively early to that, right?
Yeah. My first 2 years of running Sagacent, we started January 1st of 2000. Thought I knew all the answers to everything and found out rather quickly I didn't. But those first 2 years, sitting and waiting for the phone to ring proved to be a bad business plan. And I started trying to think about how I should do this differently. And what I wanted was recurring revenue, although the term wasn't readily common yet. And I decided that I was going to move all my clients from time and materials to some kind of retainer basis. But then it took me a little bit more time to get up the guts to go to the clients and say, hey, this is going to be our business model. But by 2004, I had converted all of our traditional clients to what became later managed services. And my fears of losing everybody was an overreaction, because we only lost 2 clients out of our whole stable. And they wouldn't have made great clients for managed services anyway. So I often am my own worst enemy, and I overthink things and I get frightened. And I'm glad I did what I did. I just wish I'd been more decisive and done it more quickly rather than making myself suffer.
You know, it's so interesting. Anytime I talk, so that really is early, I should say. I mean, if you were pretty much on the managed services model by 2004, you really were at the leading edge of that whole trend. And it's just always fascinating to me when I talk to people who made that transition back then, because you all did it independently. Now, maybe this is not true. Maybe there was somebody who did.
No, you're exactly correct, because I had not heard it. In fact, I have this patented phrase, which is much, much better than managed services. I called it comprehensive infrastructure support, because it just rolls off the tongue. Thank God that title didn't last.
But I remember, one of the first articles I wrote about managed services, I interviewed Amy Luby, who you probably know, another one of these, and she was just sort of out on her own in Nebraska and thinking the exact same thing. It's like, man, it would be great if I had recurring revenue instead of just, this unpredictable episodic revenue. Hey, here's a thought. And there were just a bunch of people doing that right around the same time frame. It's like, you almost wonder why. Was it the availability suddenly of remote management tools that made this model seem like a practical option all of a sudden?
Well, the remote managed services tools were pretty weak at that time. And so I was already thinking, and I was tracking every ticket we would do. And I was going, oh my God, about 98% of everything we do is on site. I've got to figure out a way to do this remotely. And so I was out there looking at things. Most of the tools at the time were open source, almost freemium products. And you would buy those. And actually, what convinced me to go with ConnectWise way back when was when I started adding up my time. I was spending far more time tweaking our tools in order to take care of clients than actually billing clients. And I'm going, okay, this stuff where we're trying to roll our own tools is silly. I need to buy a product that works so I can bill people.
From the perspective of somebody like yourself who's been doing this for a long time now and has been dealing with tools and vendors in the managed services space for a long time now, are you just sort of reveling in the availability of tools in all these different categories now and the selection you have? Or is there anything about the old days in a sense that you miss? I mean, we've got all this private equity money in managed services now, much bigger players and so on. Does it feel like progress, or are there things that you miss a little bit?
On one hand, it's amazing progress, and I don't want to go back to the old days. But on the other hand, we didn't have these voracious hackers. If we made a mistake, it wasn't going to be the end of the world for a business. Today, the risks are so much greater. We cannot afford to make mistakes. And I cannot believe how much we spend on buying tools to secure businesses. But we have to. And unfortunately, in our business, we're often fighting a reactionary game. They come up with a new idea, they put out the attack, and now we're running around reacting to it. I like my business being proactive and preventative, where we're doing those things that need to happen. But with the hackers, they keep coming up with new attacks that I never dreamed of just last month, and here we are this month reacting to them. It's a scary business. Actually,
absolutely, and a perfect segue actually to the first news story that we're going to talk about. So, but I'll just suggest that to you, Matt. You can actually go ahead and make the.
Well, I was going to say, Ed is referring to those darn nefarious people that we commonly refer to on this program. Red, we should just get rid of nefarious people. That's my position. What do you think?
That would be nice.
So, we'll dive into the news. That is a good segue there. But Rich, you are not home right now because I don't see your stuffed iguana, and I don't see your magic bookcase. Which, by the way, Ed, that is a fantastic bookcase you have behind you. How many books you got on there?
I haven't counted, but my wife put her foot down a few years ago, and she said, "You have an office. Anything connected with your company has to leave the home and go to the office." And for a while there, I was trying to find, where am I going to put all this stuff? But if it doesn't fit on the bookcase and in the office, it has to go bye-bye. But yeah, I'm a voracious reader. I love to read. You'll see, you might recognize a lot of the stuff. There's the books on that top shelf, Harry Brailsford books. I remember back in '99, he and I almost got thrown out of a Microsoft partner conference because I was sharing with him my vision for my company. I was close to launching, and he and I got so excited about what we were telling each other and stuff, and they kept saying, "Can you guys be quiet? Can you be quiet?" Finally, he said, "Can you guys leave?" But,
I also think I see, and it's hard to tell because it's kind of blurry on the camera, but I think there's bound to be a couple Palachuk books on that bookcase.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't feel like I've ever really had an original thought. I was always turning to my brethren in this industry for ideas. Sometimes we had similar ideas, but I always liked the way they said it better. So I would buy their books and their materials, and I would go to their conferences, and I'd go, yeah, that's what I always intended. I just didn't know how to say it.
Well, throughout history, some of the smartest people never tried to think at all. They just surround themselves with really smart people.
Yeah.
So all right. So Rich, where are you?
I am in Garden Grove, California. I am in a Hyatt Regency hotel right now. You probably can't make out what's on those pictures behind me, but they are Disneyland related because I'm very near Disneyland. But I'm here for the first ASCII group event of 2019, which started yesterday. Today is the big day, and after we're done here on the podcast, I will go downstairs and mix and mingle there.
So you're not there for the annual Disney Princess Convention?
Is that going on?
It's where you like dress up as a princess and all that kind of thing. I know you're into that kind of stuff.
You do? Yeah. Well, it's as long as I'm here, if that's going on, it's like a twofer.
Fantastic. Yeah, cool. I am not anywhere. I am voraciously, because I'd used the word voraciously, so it's on the top of my head, trying to get things packed up for our upcoming event in Atlanta, Georgia on March 5th and 6th. Our pre-day is on the 5th. Our main day event is on March 6th. Getting everything packed up into my nice, lovely Pelican cases and get everything done for that. So, yeah, so that's what we're doing. Rich, you want to say anything about our event before we hit the news?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been a busy event-related week for me. It continues to be. So we just last night shipped our show guide, which everyone who comes to the events gets, and it's packed with white papers and all sorts of great stuff, takeaways that you can bring home and learn from. That content is done. We're finalizing slide decks and so on. We're going to have sessions on what we're calling getting ready for managed everything. If you are focused on managing endpoints and networks and maybe doing some basic antivirus and BDR, you really ought to be thinking beyond that, getting into VoIP and unified communications, hardware as a service, all sorts of other as a service opportunities. We've got a session about that. We've got a great session with an expert named Benson Chan about how to get started in the Internet of Things. Our colleague Colleen Fry, our managing editor here at ChannelPro, will be doing one-on-one interviews, peer-to-peer interviews with some channel pros out there who have gotten deep into cybersecurity. So beyond the security basics, they're doing more sophisticated kinds of security services and offering that as a separate service to their customers. And you will hear how they did that and what they offer and how they price it and how it works. And that's going to be great. We've got some sales experts who are going to be competing for the title of the best sales consultant out there and providing a lot of great sales advice in the process. And then you're going to be doing another one of your game shows.
Yep. We're not doing Jeopardy this time though. Ed, did you ever see the Jeopardy game show?
Oh, too many times.
I figured you were still in the room. So we've hung up Jeopardy. We've done it in all the major cities we normally go to. So, but everybody loved the game show. They thought it was fun and educational. But so this time we're going to the feud. We're going to split the room in two distinct families, and we're going to compete head to head and see what ChannelPro readers have said in our questions. In fact, if you get the ChannelPro reader survey in your email box, you are going to see some of the questions that we're going to be using. So we're mining the data, and when we say the survey said, it's going to be actually what our readers said. So it'll be fun. We hope. So, all right. On that, so Rich, we were talking about security and nefarious people, and Carbonite has made a purchase. Man, pretty soon it's all just be one company that's left.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Just a little quick backstory on this. So we did not do a podcast episode last week because you were not feeling well. You sound good this week, which is good news. But 2 weeks ago, we did our last episode of the podcast, wrapped it up, said goodbye, see you in a little while, folks. I had probably 45 minutes to an hour at that point before I needed to leave home for a doctor's appointment. And I'm telling you, maybe 5 minutes after we finished the podcast, this press release drops into my inbox announcing that Carbonite has bought Webroot. And so there was some furious writing that had to happen before I went off to the doctor's appointment. But this is a pretty big acquisition and an interesting one, because Carbonite obviously is one of the biggest names in BDR and backup and failover, high availability. Webroot is a very familiar name among MSPs in security. And essentially what Carbonite is doing here is redefining itself as a data protection vendor. So we think of them maybe as a backup vendor, but they want you to think of them now as a data protection vendor. And that means backing up data and making sure that it's available if it becomes corrupted or encrypted by ransomware. It also means securing the data from attack in the first place via technologies like you can get from Webroot. So kind of an interesting play there. It sort of points to the blurring line, the fading line between security products and backup products these days. Backup products in the age of ransomware really are part of a defense in depth strategy, a layered security strategy for an end user. I think we're going to see more companies that offer both security and BDR under one umbrella, and we've spoken before about how sooner or later that's coming to Datto. We don't know when. They haven't spoken about it, but I'm pretty convinced that's on the way. And then the other thing that's just sort of interesting here from Carbonite's perspective is their channel has been heavily VAR composed in the past. Webroot is very much focused on MSPs. So for them, this was an opportunity not just to jump into security, but really to jump into the MSP channel in a bigger way as well.
So Ed, do you use Carbonite or any Webroot tools in your business?
We hadn't been using Webroot yet, although we've been watching them very closely. And it's been quite clear for a long time that what their intentions were. They were rolling up a business of real value for acquisition sometimes. I've got to admit, I'd never thought of Carbonite acquiring them, but it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, if you're a business providing a service and all you provide is backups, they just proverbially doubled their value. But the interesting thing is they bought such a company of such renown. They're going to be taken, 80% more serious or get 80% more interest by people just because they bought a juggernaut.
They did. I always would have thought some kind of acquisition would go the other way. If you would say these two companies, like I would see Webroot buying a Carbonite as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was brilliant. My only concern a little bit in this industry, I really like to find channel-only vendors. That makes me feel great. Carbonite has not been channel-only. Maybe that's going to change. Hopefully that, we see things there. But kudos to Carbonite. That was a heck of an acquisition.
And what do you think that's going to mean for those who are maybe offering Carbonite services or Webroot? Do you think that's going to make some kind of major difference in what they're offering?
Well, yes. Well, case in point, most of our backups are built around, if it's a low-end backup, it's StorageCraft. If it's a high-end, it's Datto. I love Datto. But we have a couple clients who are not willing to pay for what I consider a best-in-class product. So we've been using Carbonite for that. Now Carbonite owns Webroot. We haven't used Webroot, as I said a moment ago. Maybe it's time for us to take a look at that. And I know that a lot of their clients are going to be in the same boat.
And Rich, what did you gather from them about some of the goals and strategies? Where do you see them taking this?
Well, the interesting thing about that is this deal is all but done, but not officially done. It hasn't closed yet. So I've interviewed a couple of different Carbonite executives about it within the last few weeks since the news broke. And, the answer basically is we really can't tell you much about what we're planning to do until the deal is final. But they've certainly dropped plenty of loud hints about, to some extent, either coordinating or integrating their backup products with the security products so that they can exchange data and collaborate. If if Webroot security software spots an attack or a potential risk, maybe it goes off to the BDR system and makes sure that there's an up-to-date backup in place. And if there isn't, maybe it automatically triggers that. Let's back up the data now, because there might be some, something bad about to happen, and we're going to need that. So they pretty clearly will be looking for synergies, for ways to get the products to do that sort of 1 + 1 = 3 thing that you want when you make an acquisition like this. But they can't be very specific yet about what that will look like and when you'll start actually seeing it.
Yeah, and your next story was very interesting because it says that this deal all boils down to one word. But then you have 350 words here. So what is it? Is it one word or is it 350 words here in this article?
Well, they pay me by the word, so.
So you said synergy. So you and they are looking at synergy as some important thing here.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the press materials that they distributed after announcing this, or the transcript of the press conference that they did, there was a lot of talk about how complementary these companies are, and so they both play in different realms of data protection. Like I said before, Carbonite has a lot of VARs in the channel. Webroot has a lot of MSPs in the channel. One of the things Carbonite likes about Webroot, because Webroot is strong with managed service providers, it also has strong relationships with RMM vendors. And this is another one of the question marks about where this deal kind of goes. But I interviewed one of the topmost executives at Carbonite, I'm guessing a year-ish ago, and just brought up the fact that, BDR solutions are getting incorporated into these kind of end-to-end managed services suites now that, a company like Datto, for example, has RMM and PSA and as well as BDR sort of built into that. And so I was kind of asking, do you feel exposed as a BDR only, sort of a standalone BDR kind of provider? And the response I got was, we are well aware, we are very aware of that trend in the industry, and we are actively thinking about how we will deal with it. And there was talk, hints at maybe alliances, or so again, they're not providing any specifics, but the RMM relationships that they acquire along with Webroot are very attractive to them, and it'll be sort of interesting to see how they kind of take advantage of those to maybe compete with some of the other BDR companies out there that are getting into other realms of managed services software.
Rich, it's been interesting how siloed our industry was. Maybe there were 40, 60, whatever different vendors, but you kind of went to each vendor for one thing. And now as these companies have bundled together and built these solutions, I don't use Kaseya, but now that they've bought several companies that I now use Kaseya, or at least I'm a Kaseya client. And what used to be a very linear program of us to our vendors is now almost a web. You're interconnected with everything now, where it didn't used to be like that.
I was actually just about to say something along those lines. Is it even possible in this space to offer a single purpose solution anymore?
It better be really good.
Yeah.
I just blew Ed's mind. I don't know, man. I don't think that's possible. What do you think, Rich? Is there any single purpose, single solution, I guess you should say, tools still out there?
Well, so there are vendors like, say, Sagacent, and they do a lot of different data protection and storage kinds of things. So it's not like a single purpose solution necessarily.
But they've just merged with eFolder, and then eFolder was rebranded as Sagacent.
Right. Yeah. So, maybe that isn't a good example of single purpose in the way you're kind of talking about, because they do BDR and backup and file sync and share and disaster recovery as a service and so on.
Carbonite's one of the last ones that I probably would have gone to as a good example of a company that does one thing and they do it really, really good. And now that's just not it anymore.
I suppose in the security space, there's still some of that.
Well, you look at SonicWall. SonicWall's still doing security only. I've actually been quite surprised that no one has snapped them up. They have a substantial MSP following. I mean, it's huge. We're a SonicWall partner. I like them a great deal. Been a partner for 25 years. But I don't know why they're not being acquired. To me, that seems like one heck of a tasty little tidbit somebody should acquire.
It's interesting because they were part of Dell for a while there.
Yes. Well, Dell decided to buy a bigger meal and to take some things off its plate.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's a very, watching all these companies buy each other up and merge, and it's just it's been very, very interesting to watch. But anytime these companies do anything like that, where they buy or merge or join forces or whatever they do, they always have to do something to address their partners, namely partner programs. And that's what Eaton has kind of been working on this last week or two.
So here I am in Orange County, California. Last week I was here as well, attending a couple of different events, one of which was sort of a roadshow event that Carbonite was doing. The timing was nice on that. But the main reason I came down was to attend Eaton's annual partner conference.
And it just so happens that there was also Disney Villain Con going on.
Right. Yeah. It's just an accident that I could, put that flight in the expense report, but worked out.
Yeah, see how he just rolls with it, Ed? I can't even get him anymore.
Rich does have that villain look about him. I could see him be this arch villain, and rule the world.
All right, sorry. Keep going.
So I was down here for the Eaton Partner Conference last week, which is not sort of a traditional partner conference where you invite all your partners. It's more of an invitation-only kind of thing for a small-ish set of their best partners, and it's an opportunity for Eaton both to collect feedback from their partners and to announce some things to those best partners. And the biggest thing that they announced last week was the introduction of this new version of their partner program, Power Advantage Partner Program. And what's interesting about that, it shows how both Eaton specifically and the power market generally is evolving right now. The power market used to be UPS hardware, PDU hardware, very transactional kind of business. If you're going to be rolling out servers or setting up a server closet or something like that, you needed some power protection, and you went to your favorite distributor and bought a little hardware to tack onto that sale. But what they're really focused on at Eaton right now, and what their customers are really looking for, is more of a power solution kind of sale that can go along with an edge computing kind of environment or a hyperconverged infrastructure kind of environment. They're looking for more. The end users are looking for more than the transactional sale. At the same time, cloud computing is obviously eroding the business for all that on-premises hardware. And so, if you're in the business of power protecting on-premises hardware, your long-term future might look a little bit shaky if you're an Eaton. And so, they've been getting more and more into subscription services for support and predictive analytics and monitoring and things like that, getting more into the software side of the business to collect recurring revenue and set up a different kind of revenue base. And that means that their channel, basically in recent years, has grown more varied and more complex. Instead of just, infrastructure providers and power specialists, they've got a lot of MSPs in their channel now. So they updated their partner program basically to accommodate all of this. There are a lot of new educational resources that are designed to help partners develop solutions, speak with customers about solutions, sell solutions. And then they've got different educational tracks within the program, one of which is specifically designed around managed services. So if you're in managed services or thinking about adding managed services, and a lot of their sort of old school power partners are, you now have the resources to do that within the Eaton Partner Program. Interesting little side note about that. At last year's Eaton Partner Conference, I wrote a story about how they were Eaton was planning to introduce a whole separate partner program for MSPs specifically, And what they realized, they never did that. And what they realized eventually, the reason they didn't do it is a lot of their partners who are working as MSPs are also working other times as VARs. There's no clear line between, who the MSPs are and who the rest of the channel is. And it didn't really make sense to have two different partner programs for one company to participate in. So they rolled it all together into one expanded program.
What do you think, Ed?
I got to go check my mail because I've been an Eaton partner for a long time, and I shamefully admit I didn't know about the change in the program. I got to go look.
It may have been a soft kind of launch last week, just to this sort of circle of insiders they had out at this event. Because come to think of it, I don't know that I've seen a press release from them about it. It is public information, but maybe they're waiting just a little bit to make a splash with it.
Yeah.
Also illustrating why it's very important week to week to watch and listen to ChannelPro Weekly, where you get news and information up to the date, stuff that you didn't even think you'd find out otherwise. Aren't you glad you're here, Ed?
Absolutely.
So you said you've been an Eaton partner for a while. I would say that most Eaton partners are very familiar with Eaton as a company for power and power management, but it's amazing how much software and services are becoming so crucial to making money on that side of the market.
So let me share something. So way back when, this is the early 2000s, I made a commitment to myself. I didn't want to sell anything that didn't have recurring revenue. I didn't want to sell anything that I could not remotely administer. Way back when, we were looking at APC versus Eaton. At the time, Eaton edged out APC because they had a network card that was optional in the UPSs. So again, since I don't want to sell anything that isn't remotely administrable, it was very important that the UPS had a network card. So if I can't get to the server, I could at least ideally get to that UPS and make a determination on what was going on that network. If I can't get to the UPS either, well, we're probably dealing with a connection issue, the internet's down or something like that. But that was another tool in our toolbox. So I want everything, even phones that we do today, if it's not remotely administrable, we're not going to sell it. And then, frankly, I don't want to sell it if there isn't going to be recurring revenue.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Rich, what else did you learn there at the Eaton conference? We had any other stories from them?
Yes, actually. And I didn't put this in the show sheet. I will add it in later. There were some tidbits in there. Just within the last few months, Eaton has introduced some integration between its power quality products and ConnectWise software, the ConnectWise Automate RMM tool specifically, if I'm not mistaken. So you can now use ConnectWise Automate to manage not just notebooks and desktops and servers, but UPSs and PDUs from Eaton, thanks to some integration that they did. They've got a similar kind of integration coming up with SolarWinds. That's in development now, and they have aspirations to go out to some of the other RMM vendors. So Eaton is in the software business, and they have tools for administering their products, but they're also well aware that MSPs in particular prefer to have fewer panes of glass to deal with, and so they're building in support for their products into some of those systems there.
Which leads into a great question for Ed. Ed, how many single panes of glass do you have?
Probably 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But there are things, frankly, that you can't see in the integration with your RMM, and you still have to go to these other tools. I know we'll be talking about integration with like BrightGauge later, but we love BrightGauge. Oh my God. And we try to set up integration with whatever tool to be reporting through BrightGauge. And one of the things I love about BrightGauge is it can send us reports on a morning basis. So as I'm heading into the office, I get like 20 different reports on different things. My people are all accountable for it, but I like to trust and verify. So looking at those reports, yeah, but there are too many panes of glass. You want to minimize those, but just because it's ported into one tool that you use for almost everything doesn't mean you're going to have access to everything. So yeah, it's an ongoing battle we fight.
So you love to monitor things, which is important, and you're not the only one. who's in the monitoring business. In fact, Continuum is now monitoring the dark web. Rich?
And I was just going to point out, Continuum just recently bought BrightGauge, so you're a ConnectWise, Correia, and Continuum customer.
That's why I said it's a web now.
It's crazy.
You're involved with everybody.
Yeah, so the latest news from Continuum, they are making a big push into security. They've got a whole suite of managed security products that they're offering now. They're very happy with the market reception that those systems are getting, but they're finding when they talk to MSPs that the biggest hurdle MSPs face is convincing their end users to make the investment in these kinds of tools. There is still a lot of thinking out there among SMBs that no one's going to bother going after me, or the tools I have in place now are perfectly adequate. Why am I spending more money? Yeah, exactly. What a firewall? Didn't you guys put a firewall in? What more do I possibly need? So Continuum basically has introduced this new service that really is meant to be kind of a sales tool for the MSPs, and it's primarily an assessment service. You can go into a customer environment, pull together a report about the protections that they have in place and where they're exposed. A couple of different interesting things about it. It includes a dark web monitoring component. So we've spoken a lot in the podcast about ID Agent, which right now is sort of the big name in dark web monitoring, but not the only one. Breach Secure Now and others do that as well. But dark web monitoring, as we know, has become a very powerful sales tool for MSPs in the last couple of years because it allows you to show a client or offer them, concrete proof that you have in fact been compromised. Here are some of your credentials that are available for sale in the cybercrime black market right now. So working with an unnamed third-party provider, Continuum is drawing on some dark web monitoring data, and they've built some IP around that of their own. They've got their own dark web monitoring solution out there now. They also offer what they call peer comparison reports. So you can not only assess a client environment and show them where they're good and where they're not, you can show them how they stack up against similar sized companies in the same industry. And if they're trailing the pack, basically that can be a pretty compelling data point in terms of closing a sale. So just an interesting new set of tools. It kind of expands the Continuum security offering, and it also arms the partners to sell the core, the flagship products in that security suite a little bit more effectively.
Unnamed, huh? Unnamed third party?
Unnamed.
Is it Bob? I bet it's Bob.
Yeah, Bob's got a pretty big dark web monitoring data set out there, from what I hear.
Well, he's very big in the dark web. Good old Bob. Or Jimmy. It could be Jimmy.
Is that different than the Microsoft Bob?
Yeah,
I still have nightmares from that product.
It's that paperclip guy. He runs the dark web.
Clippy.
Yeah, he got pissed off after he was excised and set up the dark web.
Clippy joined the dark side.
The conspiracy theories you'll only hear right here on ChannelPro Weekly. So, Ed, do you have a lot of customers that worry about the dark web and that kind of thing?
No, but they should. I worry all the time. We focus largely on professional service firms. There's 4 verticals I like. And they'd be out of business if they were hacked or they lost confidential client information. I'm always trying to explain it to them. And as we've said, we're too small. No one cares about us. Well, they don't have to care about you because they have these programs that just scan the web looking for vulnerabilities. They don't know it's you. They don't care it's you. Can they monetize you? And especially in professional service firms, if you've got confidential client data and you let it out, whether you have regulations or anything like that, if you let it out, you're out of business. Your reputation is mud. And then you have the added benefit if you have regulatory compliance that you have to be subject to, like if you're medical and HIPAA and things like that, that just adds insult to injury. I mean, the fines are going to be astronomical. So a lot of my business is educating them on the risk and convincing them to let me do what needs to be done.
Rich, we talked about some of the statistics about companies that have a data breach and how many go out of business, and it's a pretty staggering number.
It is. It's way up there in the within 2 to 3 years or whatever it is, you're way up into the upper two digits there in terms of companies that don't survive that experience. And the thing is, from an attacker's standpoint, SMBs are low-hanging fruit. So there's this idea of security through obscurity. There are millions of businesses like mine. They're never going to find me. But I mean, you are actually a tempting target precisely because you're so insecure. And like you were saying, I mean, the tools that the attackers are using these days are so scalable. I don't have to, demand $1 million from you to decrypt the data that my ransomware has made useless to you. I get a few $1,000s from you, and I move on to the next SMB. So yeah, it's got to be frustrating, in fact, trying to educate SMBs on just how great the danger is, especially because you know all too well, Ed, that when and if they get attacked, the first call that gets placed is to you, and it's like, well, why didn't you stop this?
They're gonna go for my throat.
Yeah.
And that change in how the nefarious people look to make money is I think very shows that going after small targets for smaller amounts is far more lucrative in the long run than trying to nail a big fish.
But understand, there are so many different groups out there perpetrating these attacks. Small fish may be great for one group, and they're going after it. And then you've got people who are specifically going after, I pick on medical firms. I just want to get access to confidential, client information and hold them ransom. But you're under attack from all of these attackers, not just one.
Yeah.
And that makes it just absolutely scary.
What do we do about it, Ed? I'm scared.
Well, what I find in our case is we have to morph what we do for security almost quarterly. We are constantly reinventing ourselves, looking at what we did before. I do what my employees jokingly call a manifesto. I send out to our clients a security update in Q1 of every year for the last 5 or 6 years that talks about, here's what we're doing and here's what we're going to change. And we just sent that out for 2019, and we had 9 things we were doing last year for every client to secure them. And we just added 4 more. And a couple of my clients called me and they said, Ed, do we really need this extra stuff? And I'm saying, yes, I wouldn't be adding it. I wouldn't be forcing my people to learn it and to be hurting my profitability by having us manage more things if I truly didn't believe it was necessary to keep you safe.
So do you scale your prices as you add in more tools and services like that?
Yes and no. So certain tools that I think are essential to us maintaining our leadership in our space, we roll into our stack. But when I see a tool that not all my clients, frankly, need, I'll make that as an add-on option. And then I go to those clients that I think should have it, and I talk to them about it. So yeah, we've enhanced our offering for our managed services, but we have also redefined those advanced security options.
Yeah. You mentioned a little earlier that medical businesses, hospitals, doctors' offices, anything in the medical space is in particularly at very high risk because consumer and patient data is very valuable if you can get your hands on it. And
I would honestly say most of the industries that we serve in that professional space, all of their data. So let's say we've got a couple very large high-end accounting companies dealing with mega companies. They've got very, very confidential information. Their clients would be very unhappy if their data ended up in the wrong hands. So all businesses of a professional nature have highly confidential data. It needs to be protected. Medical is an easy one to pick on because it seems even the layman understands HIPAA or has heard of HIPAA, so we can talk about it. But I don't care your industry, you're dealing with information. The loss or the compromise of that data, would that put you out of business? Would it damage your reputation beyond repair. And it kind of drives me nuts when I see these stats on how many companies are being attacked, because I think they're so low. It's like 1 in 3 or 3 in 5 or something businesses get ransomware. I think that's just the very tip of the iceberg. I think the vast majority of businesses pay the ransom and they don't let anybody know.
That is scary.
I think it's a much, much bigger problem.
Yeah, and I was kind of pointing out healthcare in particular, primarily because StorageCraft actually just introduced a new healthcare specific solution regarding data storage. And you're absolutely right, though, Ed. You just made my segue just look terrible.
Sorry.
No, I'm just messing with you. But Rich, tell us about what StorageCraft is doing for healthcare.
So they have it's kind of a solution, and it's kind of not a solution. We can sort of get into a bit, but they introduced a product last year at StorageCraft called OneSafe. And it's kind of a converged primary and secondary storage backup solution for mid-sized businesses, kind of an all-in-one scale-out appliance sort of solution. And it turns out that it's actually a really nice fit for healthcare organizations. Healthcare businesses are inundated with data these days as they make the switch from paper to digital medical records, as they collect digital x-rays and medical imagery. They have enormous amounts of data that they need to store and manage and archive and back up and protect. And this OneSafe solution, from StorageCraft's perspective, is actually a really great fit for that kind of a thing, because especially if you're a regional health center or a regional clinic of some kind, so a mid-sized healthcare provider, you don't necessarily have the budget for some giant enterprise scale storage sort of solution. The ability to deploy something that's reasonably affordable and that is scaled to your needs today, but that is built around a scale out architecture, so you can just kind of keep tacking on nodes as you accumulate more data over time. That's a potentially appealing picture. And so they're calling this StorageCraft for healthcare. There is really no healthcare-specific functionality that they have added here. This is kind of like a go-to-market package that they have developed in collaboration with some of their partners who specialize in healthcare clients. So there are marketing materials and messages and so on that other StorageCraft partners can use to sell this to healthcare clients, just because healthcare clients are such a great target for the OneSafe solution. This comes after, just within the last 12 months, probably less than 12 months, StorageCraft has introduced similar sorts of go-to-market packages for law enforcement and for education, two other verticals where there's lots of data being accumulated at a very rapid pace. They need help managing all that. They don't want to over-provision and overpay upfront for that storage. And so from StorageCraft's perspective, that scale-out architecture they can bring to the table is going to be a really great fit for that need.
That's pretty smart. As an MSP, when I go to the conferences or the peer groups and I'm talking to people, the one thing MSPs do that we suck at is sales. We don't know what to say. We don't know how to create marketing materials. And when a vendor goes forth and creates that material, and all we have to do now is take that material and go talk to a prospect, that's brilliant.
And Rich, if you look at this thumbnail here for a second, I think I would trust doctors more if they were carrying around like rack servers and storage arrays. Wouldn't you?
I'm not sure, but I genuinely believe you would. I think there is nothing that would be more reassuring to you than having the doctor come into the examining room carrying 1U anything. This is my kind of guy.
Well, if he can inspect a network port, he can inspect any of my ports. That's or she, for that matter. Look at that. I got Ed. Look at he's laughing.
Oh, you did.
So cool. And this is not the first specialized vertical storage and or anything solution that's out there. And I know you mentioned a whole bunch of other ones. Ed, are you seeing in your business a lot more, as you said, you work with a lot of vertical specific solutions in your offering?
I try to create them, but frankly, one of the reasons we chose the verticals that we focus on is they're very similar as far as the solution for them. They have different regulations they face, but the solution always kind of comes back to the same ones. And I didn't want to have dramatically different clients where I had to reinvent the wheel all the time. But I've alluded to this. I love it when the vendor goes and does the research for me and packages up a solution and makes my job easier.
And that seems like a double-edged sword to me, though. It's like, do you love it when the vendor kind of does all the...
Do I like it when they do that, or do I find it a little scary or something? No, I actually like it. I think Matt was alluding to the fact that maybe by creating these packages, my competitors could grab those packages. The vast majority of any industry, I think people don't go do stuff. There are so few that will step out there and do it. You don't have to worry about that. So when the vendor goes and creates these things, I don't think there's any negative in it whatsoever.
That is exactly what I was trying to ask. Am I back now?
Yes.
Okay.
Now there is still just that little bit of pixelation, whatever, breakup in your voice, but you are back.
All right. Well, I'll work on that. As I think I might have a defective microphone, Rich. We've run into this too much, and I can't seem to fix it. So let me know if it gets too bad, and I'll try to find another microphone. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yes, that is exactly, Ed, what I was trying to ask you. Is you find it that these vendor solutions aimed at verticals equates to more competition for you? No,
I think they enable me. In fact, if I think about the top three things I look at any solution is A, is it a great solution? B, is there margin to be made? And C, what's the vendor doing to make it easier for me to sell? And there's a lot of vendors that we have that I specifically chose because the A and B were very similar to other vendors, but C was only present in one specific vendor, and that's who we signed with.
You know, it's interesting, Ed. I'll tell the truth. When I was talking to the folks at StorageCraft, I was a little bit disappointed at first that there really isn't any healthcare specific function. It's like, you're telling me about the solution called StorageCraft for healthcare, but it's the same exact solution that anybody else can purchase. But you're actually persuading me that it is kind of genius to just create that name. I mean, all it is a marketing tool, but it is a very powerful thing when you're going into a healthcare client to say, I've got a healthcare solution here that is going to be useful for you.
And are we able to articulate the value? I mean, customers want to hear that you understand their pains. And hopefully StorageCraft, I can't wait to look at this, but hopefully they did a little bit of research and they're saying doctors and medical offices have these pains, A, B, C, D. And if you walk in to a prospect and you're able to talk to them about their pain with some knowledge, the sale's almost done. So, like I said, I can't wait to look at this material.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts once you've had a chance to take a look at that. Let's just move on here to the next and last news item for this week's show, which in and of itself is not exactly blockbuster news, but I thought it was worth calling attention to for a particular reason that relates to something that we've been touching on a little bit during this episode here. So not too long ago, about 8-9 days ago, Avik, the network monitoring and management company, announced that they had rolled out some new integrations between their product and some third-party systems that MSPs use, and specifically BrightGauge, as you were noting before, Ed, is one of those. Passportal, Warranty Master, and IT Glue. So
they did all this because of me, though.
Oh, they did?
No, because we haven't signed with Avik yet, and they call me about every other month, and they are a vendor I want to sign with. But I noticed that everybody they've integrated with is a vendor we work with. So I think this was done specifically to hook me.
They got you now. No more excuses, basically.
Yeah, it's like, Ed, we're already in everything else you use. You might as well sign.
part of what was interesting, significant about this to me is, we've been talking about how some of these big vendors are assembling these increasingly comprehensive managed services suites. And there's a lot of concern in the industry about whether or not that poses any long-term risks to integrations between these different platforms and compatibility between these two platforms. And, specifically, you look at a company like Kaseya, and just within the last year, they've added appliance-based BDR and cloud-to-cloud backup. And they bought Rapid Fire Tools. They do compliance management now. And they also revealed that they own IT Glue. They compete. Kaseya makes a product called Traverse, which is a network management system. It competes directly with Avik. Within the last month or two, I've been on the phone with the CEO of Kaseya, and he has sort of, reeled off for me very concisely why he believes his product is better than Avik. He absolutely has Avik in his sights as a competitor. But that has not prevented IT Glue and Avik from integrating their systems. So it's like we continue to watch this kind of thing at ChannelPro and make sure that everybody is doing what they say they are going to do, which is maintain open APIs and open platforms and integrate with anyone, and try to provide incentives for an MSP to buy everything from themselves, but make it possible to weave multi-vendor solutions together. And here's just a little recent sign, a little recent indicator that that trend continues, that openness continues. Avik is integrated with BrightGauge, which is a Continuum product, and they're integrated now with IT Glue, which is a Kaseya product, even though they compete in network management with Kaseya.
And I think Passportal and Warranty Master are still standalone. No one's acquired them yet.
I believe that's true, yeah.
Yeah, hint, hint for the vendors out there looking for good acquisitions.
Right.
Don't worry, that'll change next week.
Yes.
He's back and clear.
I am. I'm hearing myself, though, which is...
Did you go to an older technology? Something
I went to a Fast Track and my old microphone.
Yeah.
But it's feeding back in my ears, like I can hear myself. It's an echo. It's really weird.
Good news is we're not hearing that.
Well, that is good.
Or the audience.
All right. Well, why don't we do this? I will just deal with that, and we can move on to a couple of our bigger stories. So we talked a lot about security, and we have a story that's called Security A to Almost Z.
So this is actually the cover story from our February issue. The February issue is sort of a security special issue. It's not 100% focused on security, but much heavier concentration than usual of security-related content in that issue. It's good to be the executive editor of a magazine like ChannelPro, because you get to come up with this kind of crazy idea. Hey, what if we came up with a story that was sort of like a dictionary of, common or maybe not so common terms and concepts in security, and arrange that A to Z and provided definitions. And, it would help people understand concepts that might be new to them, but also sort of help them compare their own definition for more familiar concepts to one that they find in the mag. I thought this would be a really interesting cover story for the February issue. I also thought it would be very difficult and time-consuming to pull together, so I made somebody else write it. Beautiful thing about my job. I asked my colleague.
Less work.
I asked our colleague Colleen Fry, managing editor, to do this, and I just knew that she would hit it out of the park, and she did. She did a wonderful job on this. I will not dive into any particular definitions that she offered here, but I would just say, speaking for myself as somebody who reads about security quite often, I enjoyed reading this quite a bit, both because, again, there were some things in here and some comments from experts she consulted that were illuminating for me, and then also it was just sort of interesting to get somebody else's encapsulation of what's important about this or that. So I found it to be very enjoyable reading. I recommend it to our audience.
So, Rich, can you take us through a few of the things that's in it?
Well, I mean, so the A and A to almost Z is artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is playing an increasingly important role in security solutions as they get more automated and more behavior-based instead of signature-based. They have to get more and more artificially intelligent. She's got some thoughts in there, thoughts in the article about that. Let me see, what else is kind of...
Well, I liked B, baseline. If you don't know what's normal when you see something happening, is that normal? If you haven't tried to determine what's normal, you don't know.
Right. It's a really great point, right?
Yeah. I'm in looking at this, I wish I'd read it before I wrote my security update for the year, because there's a lot of good stuff in there.
It really is a very nice compendium of different product categories and trends and developments. A lot of different things in here. I mean, if you've wondered, because in the security space, people talk about CASB all the time. CASB. I'm even going to look that up here and make sure I get that acronym right, because that's in the story here. Cloud Access Security Broker, basically, is one of these product categories out there. And I find when I'm talking to security vendors, they will toss that term around pretty casually, CASB. And it's one of those things that I think I know what that is, but do I really know? So it was kind of nice to have that in here. And I'm sure for anyone listening right now, there will be examples like that in this article.
It's funny. I keep running into a lot of MSPs that are saying, oh, yeah, well, we're now an MSSP, or a managed services security provider. And I'm going, really? How are you providing some of these things? Well, if you're one of those companies that's proclaiming this, you should know all the terms in this article before you go saying you do all this stuff.
In any event, that is a cover story for February. It's available on our website. The digital version of the February issue is available on our website as well, and we will link to it from the show notes for this episode. So, fun reading for you folks, and I recommend checking it out. Now, my contribution to the February security issue was maybe a little bit less fun, but hopefully interesting as well. And it was just a thought on what I refer to in the article as the incredible expanding attack surface. So, we're talking on this episode, Ed, about all the different ways that cyber criminals are attacking end users these days. They've got a lot more points of entry onto a network than they used to. The attack surface has grown so much more complex for companies like yours in the age of the Internet of Things and all of these different Internet enabled devices out there that are, potentially routes onto the network. The big famous example from recent years was Target, which was victimized by this enormous, heavily publicized attack that cost the CEO his job. And the attackers got in through the HVAC system, through the air conditioning system. So whether you've got a Target-sized IT budget or you're an SMB, you've really got a lot of different threat vectors that you've got to be looking at these days. And that means that as an MSP or a VAR or an MSSP, you've got to be paying attention to a lot of different threat vectors. And so my article here just I went out to some security experts and spoke with them a little bit about some techniques that you can use to mitigate some of that expanded attack surface. And not a lot of rocket science, but there is a lot of stuff here that surprisingly many businesses aren't doing. Network segmentation, keeping the Internet of Things stuff isolated from some of the other items on the network. Shutting down, getting rid of stuff that people don't need, aren't using anymore, because you're probably not patching it, and that creates a new vulnerability. Looking into some of the newer network access control and other software categories that are really designed specifically to root out IP address to anything that gets added to the network, and make sure that safeguards are applied there. And then, of course, end user training, which is probably at the end of the day the most critical component of all, because the end users are quite often the weakest link security-wise at a company. So a number of things that you can do to shrink that attack surface, but everybody basically needs to be more mindful of how big it's grown.
Absolutely.
Do you
Matt's
have?
Back.
I believe he is.
Yeah, Matt, say something.
You guys hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Well, let's see how long it lasts this time.
Okay. Third time is a charm.
With all of these awesome things that computers can do, it would be awesome if they would work.
Yeah.
Well, we're video conferencing. I mean, is just plagued with problems.
Ain't that the truth?
Yes.
All right, I'm sorry, guys. I do, and I apologize to everyone that I had to drop off there. My machine locked up, and I was kind of SOL, so I had to reboot. Hopefully, it will last through the end of the show. So where are you guys at?
The incredible expanding attack surface.
Yes.
Rich wanted to depress me.
How many new attack surfaces did you guys talk about?
Well, we spoke in broad terms, generalities about IoT hardware and so on. But I was actually just as you were rejoining us, I was just about to ask Ed if there are any particular examples, because we spoke on the podcast with Dave Seibert not too long ago about some smart light bulbs that one of his clients uses, and and that it came up not in the context of security; it was more about device management. But that's like a particular example of a potentially vulnerable IP-enabled device that he has now encountered. Are you seeing this in any of your customers?
Thank God we haven't encountered it directly with our clients, but we're always fearful. I mean, we talk about the terms of shadow IT, people bringing in their own things. And one of our clients a couple of months ago, somebody brought in their own wireless access point and plugged it in and took down the whole network.
Nice.
And it took us a while to find out, where is this device that shouldn't be here? So education is a big part, that this stuff can't happen. But it is putting in an inordinate amount of additional strain on the managed service providers and the IT people to keep the business owners and decision makers informed and aware of these problems and what we're trying to do. Because what we did just last year is inadequate for this year, and it'll probably be inadequate in another 6 months.
What approach are you taking, maybe, versus other people taking in terms of the number of devices, network devices that customers can bring in? Do you just lock the entire network down and not let anything be added that doesn't go through you?
I wish. I don't think I have one client who would allow that. We have a document that they sign that, first of all, states that there is no such thing as absolute security if something is usable. And I say, if you want it to be absolutely secure, put the laptop in the safe. We're going to fill the safe with concrete and we're going to drop it in the ocean. There, it's completely safe. Can't use it. And then we go from there from a point. But we try to explain that there is no such thing as absolute security. We are going to mitigate it to the best of our ability and what your budget will allow. But they need to own some of it. And so that document also has very clear terms about their responsibilities. They have to have policies. They have to educate their people. We're happy to participate, but ultimately a lot of it falls on their shoulders, and we have to work as a team to protect their company.
Yeah. So what, do you have any restrictions at all then? Or can they just start bringing in like light bulbs and wireless access points and network devices? And I don't know.
A lot of them do bring in different things, but they understand, because they've signed the document, that it's at their own peril. We are managing things. We just found dental office we maintain, they had a computer that was coming and going, and we'd never been told about it. And we saw it pop up from time to time on the network. And we said, well, what is this computer? Oh, that's nothing. That's just our accountant. She comes in, periodically.
It's nothing. It's only our accountant.
Yeah. And it didn't have any of our defensive or protection software on it. It wasn't being monitored by us. We just see it blip on the network from time to time. Customers need to understand we have to work together. I've also gone so far as to raise prices on select clients if I believe that their stance or lack of cooperation on this is increasing my risk dramatically. I think that's something we should all do in MSPs.
We'll touch on this relatively quickly because I noticed that we're starting to run low on time before we all have to jump off to other things. But we've kind of circled around this a little bit in the episode. I'm very curious because you were talking before about how there are certain new security technologies that you build into your standard managed services bundles and others that you price separately as sort of advanced security products. And, one of the things that a lot of vendors are talking about and we're talking about at ChannelPro is this cybersecurity opportunity. The idea that beyond just sort of offering security services to your customers, you can kind of develop a cybersecurity practice that is a little bit more advanced and utilizes additional tools. And so from the standpoint of mitigating the incredible expanding attack surface, on the one hand, that's a defensive necessity if you want to protect your clients, but it's also potentially an opportunity to roll out a new cybersecurity service, bring in a new source of revenue. Is that something that you're doing? I mean, have you turned security specifically into a new kind of service practice?
No, it's something we've been doing all along. I felt it was one of my beliefs for starting the company. It's what we wanted to do. Of course, it used to be a lot easier. But I think, just to be completely honest, I think MSPs have to be extremely careful about what they are making a customer believe that they're going to be able to do. I think the litigation and court cases of customers suing MSPs hasn't begun. It's going to be ugly. And these people believe that we are doing everything for them. And the vast majority of my brethren in the industry do not make it extremely clear about what we are doing and what we aren't doing. The customer holds the purse strings, and that curtails our ability to use, carte blanche, whatever we want. We need to make it very clear to those customers what we're able to offer and what we can't, what we'd like to offer. For example, a SIM, for example. We are trying to move towards becoming an MSSP, but we are not an MSSP. But it takes us back to when the cloud was just raising its head and everybody was talking about, do I build a NOC? I don't know. Should I go get a big investment and or a loan and build my own data center? I didn't want that risk. So I started looking for vendor partners that I could partner with. Similarly, in the security front, I'm looking for people to partner with that can do things that I'm just totally incapable of doing, and we can offer through my company, but my customer understands that it's not us doing it. And our SIM is delivered in that manner. Yes, it's coming through Sagacent. We're reselling the solutions because we want to manage it for you, but we're incapable of offering you that level of analysis of your traffic. We need another partner. So I think clarity, transparency is crucial, especially more than ever in these days.
And I would add the other thing that's crucial, which everybody knows, but I mean, it very much came to mind as you were talking about that before. You need ironclad, well-written, lawyer-drafted contracts and SLAs. So it's one thing to communicate to the client, here's what we can and can't do, but I mean, you really need to get that into the stuff that people are signing to protect yourself from the lawsuits that are headed your way otherwise.
And in addition to those contracts, you should have a regular program where you're having those reviewed. In our case, it's every other year for legal documents. Actually, I guess it's every year, but it's certain legal documents and they kind of rotate. But just yesterday, sitting at my desk, I had my insurance agent and we were reviewing all of our insurance coverage. And I was telling him, and I said, okay, I need you to make it really clear to me what I'm covered. And then we talked about different scenarios that could happen. Okay, how would the insurance cover me in this case? And in 3 cases, we said, okay, we need to rewrite this plan and increase the coverage. I'm vulnerable. I'm not comfortable being that way.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. All in point to make things more wonderful for you, right, Ed?
Yes, it's a wonderful life.
It is, and you know what? There's another article that we had that was actually talking about, or at least asking the question: is your workplace wonderful?
And that too ran in our February issue, and it is all about culture and workplace culture and the importance of that, both in determining how well you're going to do your job and the kind of service that you're providing to your customers. Maybe more importantly, in this era of technician scarcity and zero unemployment in IT, your ability to attract and retain employees is going to hinge to a very great extent on the kind of culture that you create in an office. And so we've got an article in the February issue of ChannelPro about some of the best practices that readers of ours use to create a wonderful workplace culture, the kind of culture that makes people want to stay with an organization. It's interesting because I think there is this common thought well beyond the IT industry that the customer is always right and the customer always comes first. And I think one of the things that you find right away in this article is that there are a lot of very successful MSPs out there who say, actually, our people come first. And the reason they come first, in part, is because if I put my people first and I make my people happy and I make keeping them happy a priority, they're going to provide better service for our customers, and we're going to have better customer loyalty and satisfaction. But there are definitely very successful, very insightful MSPs that we know at ChannelPro who are quoted in this article, basically, who really, really believe that you've got to be fanatical about creating the kind of office that makes your employees appreciate being there and want to stay there. And that can even go to the point of firing a customer who does not treat your people well. But it's going to pay off for you in the long run if you really make workplace culture a priority.
I love this. Not enough businesses, I think, and Ed, argue with me if you disagree. I don't think enough businesses really pay attention to culture as much as they should, and making their workplace a wonderful place to work.
One of the reasons I started my business way back when was I was working with a caustic business owner who always put the customer first. Actually, he always put the dollar first. He didn't really care about the customer. If we were making $1, that was enough. And if that customer was mistreating all the employees, that was fine. And it kind of pushed me out the door and made me start my company. But interestingly, I used to, as soon as I got a resume, I was only looking at the technical abilities. When I would interview the person, I was only looking at the technical abilities. What's their experience? I've learned the errors of my ways. And for decades, well, certainly the last decade, I'd been talking to a lot of people much smarter than myself, and they were telling me how you have to build everything on culture first. I didn't quite understand. And now when I'm talking to people, we talk about their values, spend an inordinate amount of time in the interviews, tell me about good places you worked, bad places you worked, what you liked, what you didn't like, why was this, what do you see as a great place to work in, what are you looking for? I can find people who are smart technically. I can teach people that technical stuff. I can't teach them the cultural aspects that we want to foster in our company. And I really wish I'd realized this sooner, or I'd listened to those other people sooner. It is so critically important.
So as a business owner, how do you influence or foster or influence to get the kind of company culture that you want?
You need to make your people understand that it's not just window dressing, that you really believe it. We had an issue yesterday evening. One of my techs walked in and he's rather irritated about a job that we accepted when he was doing another project. And I said, Tony, if you'd mentioned this in our company meeting a little earlier in the week, we would have rescheduled that project. And he's going, really? And I'm going, absolutely. You clearly feel strongly about this, and you don't like the way it's encroaching on the other project. I would have gladly rescheduled it if you'd mentioned it in the meeting. I said, right now we're at the 12th hour. We're going out to take care of the customer. Now it's too late. I said, but you owe it to me to let me know about your feelings beforehand so that we can deal with it. And I think he left feeling much better, knowing that I seriously value his input, and we would have changed the schedule because he had such strong concerns. Show him in everything you do that it's not just talk, you're walking it.
One of the strategies talked about in the article is empowering employees to participate in decision making, so they feel not just like an employee of the company, but really a part of the company and where it's going. I mean, is that something that you try to do as well?
Absolutely. We have a tactical Monday morning meeting where all hands come in and we talk about different issues. And then during the week, there may be more specific, smaller meetings on, that are topical for a department. But I want everybody to feel like we're a family. I mean, we're not a behemoth company. I want everybody to feel like they have some ownership here. And unlike a lot of businesses, I practice open book management. They can see all the finances, good, bad, and ugly. And I want them to understand the job you do today, the levers you pull, the dials you turn, how did that affect the business? Because it's only by working together, as if we were, rowing a skiff across a river. If we're not doing it together, we're going to veer off to the left or right or go nowhere. We need to work together. And I want a harmonious, happy environment. That's why I left to start Sagacent. So it is crucially important that I attract more people that I think are an addition to helping that culture than just being part of it. When I look at them through the eyes of, how are you going to add our new accountant that came on board? As soon as I talked to her on the phone, I said, can you come in tomorrow? I want to interview you. She was happy. She was friendly. She was great at answering questions. I go, I don't know what you know about accounting, but I want you in this. I want you to be part of our team. And I'm thrilled to say that she is. But you've got to look for people that are positive and can help you bridge the challenges of our industry, because it's fraught with challenges. You need good people.
Well said. Well said. And we're gonna move on a little bit into our kind of the end of the show features that we normally do, because I know Ed is running out of time and has to take off. But I think we can wrap up with you still with us, Ed. So one of the things that we do here at ChannelPro Weekly is we do what's called a museum and a tech pick. So for those who might be new to the show, or Ed, if you haven't gotten to the end of many of our shows in the past, I have a vast sea here of old technologies, consumer technologies, PC technologies, IT stuff, video games. I love the old. In fact, you can look at my bookshelf behind me. You can see.
I was looking at your Nintendos and other toys.
Yep, I got some of those back there I've talked about. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And Rich has been here. He can attest. This little bookshelf right here is only the beginning.
Oh yeah.
So, but I had a different museum pick in mind, but I just had this inspiration. We were talking about, is your workplace wonderful? And sometimes a business owner providing little things to make the workplace a much better place to work helps it be more wonderful. And I was thinking, like, wow, what makes my workplace, which is my home office. So like, what makes my home office a wonderful place to get work done? And I realized that there's a piece of hardware that I have used every day for the past, ever since I started working from a home office. So maybe 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. And it is a critical part of my workday. And that's coffee. More importantly, I don't like to just guzzle a cup of coffee, immediately. I like to sip on a cup of coffee throughout the workday. And I have my museum pick. I have actually two of these. One is my backup in case my other one fails. But my other one, if I showed it to you, it looks like it has been through a war. But here's my museum pick. It is the Toastmaster TMMGW electric coffee mug warmer.
Yeah.
I have this is my nice new looking kind of backup for when my other one goes bad. But I have used this every workday for 10 years. 365 times 10 plus. That's a lot of days. That is a lot of coffee kept warm. And it can warm coffee. It can warm tea. It can warm, well, anything that's in a cup that you put on it, I suppose.
But that's a newer one because I don't see mine. I'm looking at mine. Mine's identical to yours.
Is it really?
The black. It's one of my joys. Except I drink tea all day long. Mine is heavily scarred from the bottom of my cup. Yours is awfully clean. I think that's a new one.
Right. This one has not really been. Again, this is my backup. I have.
Oh, okay.
I have one. The problem is that the cord I don't think is long enough to show on camera. But in fact, I'm using it right now, keeping my coffee warm.
Yeah.
Is it long enough? Maybe it is.
Yeah, that's the way they look after a while.
There it is. I didn't think I had enough cord to pull it up.
That's a well-used one.
Yeah, this bad boy, 10 years of use on this guy.
Wow.
And it was even to the show, it was keeping my Fallout coffee mug warm full of coffee.
Yeah.
So I practice. Let me move this back over here. I practice what I preach. And I bought this one because I actually thought the other one was going to die because, how can this thing work for 10 years?
Yes.
But it actually has. Yeah. But I still call it a museum pick because this is old school. This is still functional. Yes. They still sell these with various brands, but it's AC. It's a simple switch. We can do better. Now, Ed, would you think that an employer who invested $10 for an employee who wanted to have warm coffee on their desk all day, do you think that they would view their workplace as a better and more wonderful place to work?
I think it might help.
Sure, it helps, right?
And so we all, in addition to that, so we have those throughout the office, but we also have these little fans in front of you because temperature rises and falls, and sometimes you feel uncomfortable and you want a little bit more air. So I've got these little personal fans at everyone's desk, and they can turn on.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, but you make a really good point. A lot of these things, they're not very expensive, and are we enriching the lives of our employees? Good point.
Yeah, I like to have a wonderful workplace. So now I also normally my tech picks or my museum picks are like technology related, but this seemed very on point to the discussion today. But you see, we can do better, and I also like to do a tech pick. So I'm going to do and I like to relate them like this. This is then, that was then, this is now. So I use the opportunity here to quickly look at two possible alternatives to the plain white AC powered Toastmaster Sultan. This one gets sold in under, with 100 different brands on it. And I thought, well, what would be cool? So I got two. Let's say you want to go the AC route. I'm going to do a screen share here. Here's the first one that I picked out. So this is a Cosori 24 watt stainless steel coffee mug warmer. So this is a little bit higher power with an adjustable temperature on it. So not only can it keep your coffee warm, if you like your coffee at 138 degrees as opposed to 136, this is for you. So I thought, this is you're going to go high end, baby. This is it. This is high end. The other one that I picked out that I thought would be cool is this guy. So, well, you know what? This is the modern age. Everything comes with a USB peripheral. And what if you wanted to use it on the road, right? What if you're plugged into somewhere in an airport or whatever, and you want to keep your coffee warm? Bam, USB, baby. Plug it right into your notebook and keep that coffee warm everywhere you happen to be. Coffee or tea.
Pretty nice. And that one comes in different colors.
It does, yeah. It looks like there's a red version and a green version, and it says 80 to 85 degrees. So this is clearly not. Again, this is USB, so it's going to be lower power, but it's enough to kind of help keep it warm as you sip. But if you want to keep your coffee hot, you got to go with the AC model.
Yeah.
That's my ridiculous museum and tech pick for this week. Let me stop sharing that. So very cool. All right, Rich, if you were going to look to tell us what happened in the past, I bet you would probably be able to do that pretty well. But then you also tend to look forward and guess what's going to happen in the future. And you're like, when it comes to Disney princesses and stuff, you're usually right on the money. But when it comes to IT related things, sometimes you don't get it 100% right.
Not 100%.
But you're pretty good. You do get a lot correct.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I almost get to the Disney princess standard, but never quite.
So, Rich, if you're not watching the chat in the live stream, I actually posed a question. I didn't get any responses to it, but I said, if Rich were a Disney villain, which one would you be? Ed, if Rich was a villain, which villain would he be?
I don't know, but I've been ever since we talked about that earlier. I've been trying to think, and it'll come to me later.
We will work on that. Maybe we can revisit that next week. Because I'm not sure myself.
There's a lot of villains to pick from.
Yeah, exactly.
But Rich, you're almost unflappable. You're just so calm and cool to everything, and I'm over here cracking up at things. So.
We need a calm and cool villain. Well, there's probably one in the Disney universe somewhere.
Yeah, I'll ask my kids because they've met you and they're much more up on all the Disney movies. So right. I'll get an answer from them.
Ask the experts.
But if you're out there and you're listening and you want to try to associate Rich to a villain, podcast@channelpronetwork.com is the email address. Send it in, and if we agree, we'll send you a shirt. We'll figure something out. You'll get something. Well, you'll at least be recognized here on the air in a future show. So, Rich, anyway, that was then. This is now the past, future. Tell us, oh seer of seers, you villain, you.
Well, if you want to know some of what happened this week that we haven't spoken about here on the broadcast, every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com, we have a post called In Case You Missed It, written by our own James Gaskin. He's going to be talking about a lot of security news this week. Nothing earth-shattering, but we are 2 weeks away from the giant RSA security conference because vendors are already starting to announce stuff. Including some interesting 5G-related security news from Fortinet. Speaking of 5G, James is going to talk a little bit about a new 5G modem from Qualcomm. Looking ahead to next week, the big news in the industry next week is going to be the 2019 Mobile World Congress. So pretty much anyone who is anyone in the industry and makes mobile hardware is going to have some product announcements next week. Samsung actually kind of stole a march on that this week and introduced some new Galaxy products, but there's going to be lots of mobile hardware coming. I'm going to say as little as possible about this right now. I'm just going to drop a big, fat, very vague hint and let you know that for those of you who are listening to this on audio, it is February 21st as we record this. On Monday, February 25th, a monster piece of news is going to break in the SMB channel. We will be covering it here on Channel Pro. That's all I'm going to say, but it will be actually a big piece of news, and I'm pretty sure we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it on the next podcast.
Cannot wait. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up here, but first I want to thank Ed from president of. I'm getting there. Sagacent Technology. I'm so flustered. I'm thinking about big news stories next week, and I'm all excited. Rich, why'd you get me all excited? Ed Correia, president of Sagacent Technologies, right?
Correct.
Perfect. I knew I was going to get it right eventually. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and being here. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. I
love some of the things you said, and huge insight, and you're a very smart guy and clearly an awesome business owner. And I would welcome you back any day, anytime on a future show.
Thank you.
Rich, anything to say to Ed before we say goodbye?
Great talking with you again, as usual, and thanks for making some time, clearing some time out to join us. It was great.
My pleasure.
And if you want to be able to see Ed live, Ed often finds his way to our live events. You can go to events.channelpronetwork.com to see if he's going to be speaking at any particular one of those in the near future. Ed, and if people want to learn more about your company or about you, where can they find you?
Oh, if you Google Sagacent, you're going to find pages and pages. And for better or for worse, if you Google Ed Correia, you're going to find pages and pages. Not all of it is me.
The ones with the dolls are not him. I think.
No, a lot of gentlemen in Brazil. It's a common name in Brazil.
Yeah,
I've got to go visit. I think I could do a write-off. It's a business write-off.
It could be the Ed Correia Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Very cool. So we'll also put a link to your website and some other things about you on our show notes page for those who are listening in and would like to learn more. If you would like to subscribe to Channel Pro Weekly, that is really the best way to do it. We have 2 versions available. You can subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, and then you got to hit the notification bell, because subscribing doesn't necessarily mean you want to be notified of anything. So I don't know what the point of subscribing is if it doesn't, you're not notified, but they make you do a bell. Pretty soon you'll have to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and do a little funny dance. I don't know. Like, eventually they're just going to add layers and layers of this to.
Well, next week they'll have the new legal form you have to sign.
Well. There'll be a contract. You have to send in a blood sample, because that's what Google's all about these days. I'm just kidding, Google. Don't block us. If you want to subscribe to the audio version, visit channelpronetwork.com. Any of the show notes pages there, you'll find a generic RSS link for any podcast app you tend to like to use. We're also on iTunes, Google Play Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere where podcasts are aggregated. You will find us there. If you'd like to follow us on the social networks, it's we are Channel Pro Network on Facebook. We are at Channel Pro SMB. If you want to follow me, I am at Matt Whitlock on Twitter. Rich, you are
at Rich Free.
And then Ed, are you on the Twitters?
I am not. That's how I found out about all those Ed Correias in Brazil, when I was trying to get at Ed Correia.
What about you get the Facebook pages?
Oh, yeah.
All right. So if you want to see Ed and Sagacent Technologies, they'll be on Facebook. I'm sure a little search there will help you find them. If you'd like to communicate with us, we love feedback. You can hit us on any of the social networks. Also, podcast at channelpronetwork.com is probably the best way, because that will go directly to me and Rich, unfiltered. We will see it. We will respond to it. And if it says something nice, I'll take all the credit. And if it says something not nice, I will blame Rich. Is basically how that works. So that's going to wrap up for episode 106. We will see you all in episode 107 in the very near future. Thank you all for watching and listening. Good day.